Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Look, but before I get to the show, before I do anything else, I want to say one name. Jesse Smollett, I think is the name, right? I wrote absolutely nothing about that story. I never blogged that story. I never did anything about that story because I never understood that story. I never could make heads or tails of that story, so I kept my mouth shut. Later, as things progressed, it gave some apparency that just maybe some of this was staged. Is that a sure thing or not? I don't know, and I still don't know. But there's one thing where I think this crosses politics, and it goes this way. Let's take Smollett out of the picture. But we know what has happened. Somehow he was charged because there was a preponderance of evidence, apparently, that maybe there was some staging or something going on there. But as it turns out today, all charges dropped. Okay, maybe did something great happen that they found out they made some mistakes? I don't know. But I think if that were the case, the 100,000 bond that he gave would probably have been given back and not donated back to Chicago. And likewise, the statement that says, given the amount of community duty or community service that you've done thus far, this is warranted. I'm listening and wanting to tell this or speaking to every single average middle class American citizen out there. You know a phrase that we always use on Politics Done Right, and it goes as follows. Whenever we unite the barrios, the ghettos, and Appalachia, it's a very stereotypical statement that I'm making there. Whenever we unite Appalachia, the ghettos, and the barrios, meaning when all people in this country realize that we are all in this together, when all people in this country realize that race is but a tool used to manipulate folks who want to maintain the status quo and the pecking order of class, then we will be able to get together, work together, and start being shafted by the plutocracy. Let me explain a little bit more in detail of what I'm talking about. If you have money, if you are of a class where you are able to exert your financial power or the power of those who you know, you can succeed. Let's not forget that even as many folks just love the idea of calling Donald Trump the great masterful racist, the great masterful thug, and all these things, we still saw Kanye West walking up to speak to Donald Trump and being a friend of Donald Trump. And we see people of all ethnicities, in as much as he's attacked Jews, Latinos, blacks, and everybody else. But somehow those of moneyed interests have no problem breaking bread with Donald Trump, including some of the stars you claim to love. They never have a fight in these environments, people. It's all a sham, and they've always used ethnicity, culture, and all of these other things to separate us so that we don't work united to accomplish a united goal. I'm going to speak a little bit about, as I give the program later on, I'm going to include Brother Obama in this and what he did at a conference recently with Sister Ocasio-Cortez, Talib, as well as Ilmar Omar and others in trying to bust their bubbles. But I want you in hearing the program today, which we are going to again be talking about healthcare to some extent because of what Donald Trump has done today after I bring the intro into the program. I want you to stay with me. I want you to listen to it. And remember, folks, we are in this together. And this is mostly a class issue that we have got to understand, because they all use us against each other for an ulterior motive of maintaining the status quo with pecking orders where 0.1% has something that who's protected by the 1%, and the 1% has something who's protected by the 2%, and the 2% has something who's protected by the 10%. And you know what? 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck because of that pecking order. And because we have a strong 10% that has to maintain that status quo. They are fighting for life. People, you know what politics done right? You know what these type of stations are here for? To try to say, let's not be fooled anymore. Let's not allow that to happen. So what does this have to do with Justice Smollett? I think I've made that quite clear. But if you need any more, remember the number is going to be 713-526-5738. So let's all get on with the program. The program today is titled, Trump Going for the Jugular, Trying Final Blow to Kill Obamacare. Subtitle, Americans, whether Democrats, Republicans, or otherwise, better wake up. Trump is about to inflict deadly pain on you and his voters. He has filed to kill Obamacare in the courts. He's joined Texas. The state that has the worst amount of uninsured in the country. We have the worst record in health care for our people. The state of Texas, they're meeting in Austin right now, people. You should be lambasting those lines, telling them, no, we don't want that suit that Trump is joining you with now. We want you to give us the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act so that 1 million more Texans can get health care, so that you stop killing more than 2,000 Texans a year. That's what your government is doing now. They're killing 2,000 plus Texans every year. Oh, but we're a red moral state, aren't we? We are a red moral state. Trump distracts his cabal throughout the country, while he continues the complete destruction of the country's social state, safety, and just good morality. Not soon after Attorney General William Barr falsely implied that special counsel Robert Mueller exonerated him, Trump jumped on the Texas bandwagon to put the final nail in the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act coffin. But it is not a done deal yet, and 2020 is coming. That is the year that could change everything. First, Democrats must elect progressives in primaries. Hear what I just said, people. Democrats must elect progressives. I didn't say elect neoliberals. I didn't say elect just old Democrats. I didn't say just elect anybody. If you want to survive, elect people who are going to create the policies for your survival. And don't buy this mediocre incrementalism stuff. We got to put that to rest. There's nothing incremental when Donald Trump went ahead with Republican the Republican votes and otherwise to say we are going to give away $1.5 trillion to a whole bunch of wealthy people. There's nothing incremental there. It took it right away. and the carpenters and the plumbers realized that they paid for it because a lot of their expenses were no longer deductible. People, wake up. Let's do it, brothers and sisters. Wake up. They're asking us to be incremental. What is ever incremental when we are given to the wealthy? That big fire in Deer Park. What incremental was it when every month these people are charged with missing something and finally it explodes? And the TCEQ finally decided, oh, we're going to sue them now. Why didn't you sue them before? Oh, they're suing them now because they want to protect against the media, the independent media coming out and saying, hey, guys, there were all these violations before. So look, most importantly, they must sell the policies. Progressives must sell the policies they will implement. Policies Americans already say they want, effectively and continuously, might I say, ad nauseam. But anyhow, before I get to the program, folks, I want to remind all our listeners that KPFT is a bastion for intelligent voices and programs. As a political activist myself, my favorites are Think Wing Radio with
Mike Honig.
At Mondays at 3
That's
p.m.
right.
Then, of course, there's Open Journal with
Dwayne Bradley and the crew.
There you go, Monday, 6 p.m. And, of course, that show that you heard an hour before my show, and that was Jazz Latino Afro-Cuban Latin Jazz with
Juan Flores.
Juan Flores, jazz at its very best. And then, of course, coming right after this show, that voice that you just heard there, Asian Radio,
That's right.
A weekly radio program featuring an eclectic mix of Asian, underground, Bhangra, Bollywood, funk, Hindi, Rai, where accent sounds meet future beats. And when is that again?
That's at 4 o'clock today.
There you go. And I heard you were blessed as well on Sunday, buddy.
Yeah. I played at the KPFT birthday party. It was fun.
There you go. And, of course, we have Really But Not Really, a hip-hop and R&B party show on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. with
Rosemont and Mr. Marcel.
And there's Border Radio. That's on Thursdays with Susan Darrow. When again?
That's on Thursdays from 4 to 6.
Right on. Folks, anyhow, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to politics to the medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is a listener-supported public community radio station. So please remember that if you like what you hear, visit kpft.org and ensure we remain a strong, viable community radio station that provides news programming and information not influenced by whom?
The corporatocracy.
My brothers and my sisters, we cannot. And this is, look, that is what it's all about. You know, a few years ago, I made a documentary I was just one of the executive producers on it with called Legalized Democracy. Look up Legalized Democracy and just tag my name in there and pull up that documentary. It's a 25-minute documentary, and it paints the picture for you. Folks, we have to get serious, folks. We have to get serious. This stuff, this Smollett thing, and like I said, I didn't talk about it. But we talk about privilege and all that kind of stuff, and we always talk about it in the form of, white privilege and all that kind of stuff. And look, that is true, absolutely true. But there are also so many other different types of privileges we are going to have to really put into the equation, because they're using all these different calculations to screw all of us. And my dear brothers and sisters, my white brothers and sisters, you're a part of the game too that's getting screwed. I'm telling you, we have to do this stuff right. We have to do this stuff right. We have to remember we're all in this game together. But folks, what time is it? What time is it?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, we had this show, I want to change it a little bit. I wrote a blog a few days ago called "Is Opposition to Medicare for All to Save Investors While Killing and Bankrupting Americans Moral?" And one of the reasons that I said to read it is one comment from one person who read the article. And she said, "It is about time somebody said it. It's about time somebody said it." And when she wrote that, I said, well, if she thinks it's about time somebody said it, which means she hadn't heard it enough, maybe I better use it as use it as the blog of the week. So here we go. Why do they hate Medicare for all? Investors in health insurance stocks do very well. They have been taking your premiums, denying you as many drugs, procedures, and coverage as possible, and then pocketing your payments in the form of dividends, undeserved inflated million-dollar salaries to executives, and bribes, lobbying to government officials, read politicians. In other words, they were legally killing Americans for profit. Medicare for all gets them out of the picture. Insurance companies now have major newspapers trying to scare not only those who pay premiums, but those who work in the fraudulent health insurance industrial complex. Recently, the New York Times published the article titled, "Medicare for All Would Abolish Private Insurance. There is no precedent in American history." But there's precedent all over the world, right? And this is what they said. Proponents want to sweep away our complex, confusing, profit-driven mess of a healthcare system and start fresh with a single government-run insurer that would cover everyone. But doing away with an entire industry would also be profoundly disruptive. The private health insurance business employs at least 500,000 people, covers about 250 million Americans, and generates roughly $1 trillion in revenues. Its company's stock are a staple of the mutual funds that make up millions of Americans' retirement savings. Such a change would shake the entire healthcare system, which makes up a fifth of the United States economy, as hospitals, doctors, nursing homes, and pharmaceutical companies would have to adapt to a new set of rules. Most Americans would have a new insurer, the federal government, and many would find the health insurance stocks in their retirement portfolios much less valuable. Hey, folks. Yes, destroying private health insurance for primary health care is what we want and have to do precisely. Is it disruptive? Of course it is, people. Getting rid of private insurance is going to be extremely disruptive. Of course it is. But it is much less so than the millions who lose their lives. It is much less so than those who go bankrupt. It is much less so than those who live in a state of permanent stress because of an immoral system that puts dollars for investors and executives over health care. What could be more disruptive? Yes, it is more disruptive, people, to die. It is more disruptive to be bankrupt. So when people tell you, oh, that is going to disrupt the industry, yeah, let's disrupt the hell out of those industries. Let's disrupt those profiteers. Of course, let's disrupt them. We have to be proportional. Who do we disrupt more? The fat cats or the average American citizen? So yes, it is disruptive. Lean into that disruption. I've been talking a lot about lean in recently. Lean in to the disruption because we want to be less disruptive to the average citizens and more disruptive to those who rob, steal, and kill. We must change the discourse to where the pain is and not to the few that will no longer profit from people getting sick. We must not allow the minimization of the pain of the many. If anyone doubts it is about money and not the well-being of our citizens, the concern in the article makes it clear. After all, not once did the article talk about the disruption to the daily lives of Americans because of our health care system, but it speaks to the fear of investors. It speaks to the fear of investors. Here's what they say. Simply talk of Medicare for all makes investors jittery. Shares of the large publicly held insurance companies, including Cigna Humana and United Health, fell when Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat of Washington, introduced her bill in late February, but have largely rebounded. The effective takeover of the health insurance industry in the United States would mean a huge hit to the company's stocks, although the companies which have additional lines of business would most likely survive. While the bills would give relief to insurance industry workers, they would provide no such compensation for investors. Not surprisingly, the insurance industry and many other healthcare industries vociferously oppose these plans and plan to spend heavily in fighting them. Of course, you can also read that they will fight and they will put their money into killing people. You know, you have to get the right narrative here. They will put their monies into killing people, because if you are going to fight like hell to stop Medicare for all, it is saying you're going to fight like hell to allow the death of people that continues today to continue. That's, you know, we have to learn narrative, people. Learn narrative. We have to study narratives together. Anybody fighting against Medicare for all is fighting to maintain the status quo, and the status quo means killing, in the state of Texas, 2,000 people, throughout the country, over 15,000 people a year. That's what it means. Actually, more than that. I was just talking about the states that don't accept the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. So it's a lot more. Let's be clear. Medicare for all bills do take into account transitioning employees who would lose their jobs in the private insurance industry. So don't let anybody scare you into saying, we can't change our healthcare system because a lot of people would lose their job. So we should let people die because people are going to lose their jobs. Let's see. Kill people so that other people can work. How is that different than a cattle eating a cattle for meat? I don't know. You see what I'm saying, people? See what I'm saying? Do you see the rationale? When you deconstruct the reasons to maintain the status quo, when you really deconstruct it, in effect, you're saying, let's justify legal murder. Deconstruct it and give it the proper narrative. What is murder again? Killing, right? Killing, knowing so. Involuntary manslaughter is accidentally killing somebody or killing somebody because you didn't know they would have died. If you're driving and you accidentally run over somebody, it is less than murder because you really didn't want to do it. But whenever you are the healthcare industry saying you want to support policies that kill, you know that these people are going to die based on what you're supporting, then it should not be called even involuntary manslaughter. It ought to be called murder. Let's get our narrative straight. If you eliminate, or rather, but why would they compensate investors? You know, the article was saying, oh, you know what, the way the Medicare for all plans are going to work, they're going to give time for the workers to get reemployed somewhere else, but they're not going to protect investors. Why? That's why it's called investment. You are investing and profiting from legalized murder for years. Why should we now pay you because we're getting rid of a system that supports that? Why should we repay you? What we should be saying is people should start getting, well, I'm not going to go there. I can't give you investment advice. But why would they compensate investors? Did they not profit enough from the legal subordinate of murder by healthcare denial and overpricing? Let's be clear. In healthcare, having a single-payer Medicare for all system is more efficient and much less expensive. If you eliminate payments to shareholders who do nothing but collect a check comprised of your premiums, if you get rid of the millions that executives make for doing little, if you get rid of doctors, staff whose job is to fight with a myriad of insurance companies just to figure out if you're covered, if you get rid of advertising costs, if you get rid of duplicitous computer databases, computer programming, and much more, it is impossible, hear me, it is impossible that there is any other way, period. There are certain statements that you can make that's absolute, and there are certain statements that are gray area. The statement we are making that if you have a single payer system, I don't care what anybody tells you. Trust me and do the math. It is impossible for a single payer system not to be more efficient than the fraud we have today, whose purpose is to enrich a few. Period. All discussions, arguments, and narratives to the contrary that a single-payer Medicare for all system is the most efficient and will cover everyone is an attempt to keep a for-profit system to transfer your hard-earned dollars to a few wealthy individuals. They will try to scare you and make things more complicated than they are. They are not. Accept no less than single-payer Medicare for all people. No private health insurance system can beat it, lest we subsidize said system. Even when they talk about Medicare Advantage, guess what Medicare Advantage is? Medicare Advantage says, hey, government, give me 20% more money so that I can create Medicare Advantage, so that I can give more of the taxpayer dollars to a few shareholders. While Medicare says, oh, we charge 20% less and have a 3% overhead and everybody get covered. People, let's be truthful. Let's understand what's going on here, folks. And by the way, I just realized that I was transmitting in black. Just realized that. Anyhow, I got to go to the phones now. So let's go ahead and start with Johnny. Johnny, line 2. Come on in, Johnny.
Egberto.
Talk to me.
Both John Conyers and Bernie Sanders are acquainted with the need to not upset the apple cart in terms of hourly employees currently in the so-called health insurance industry.
Right.
There's legislation out there that provides for money set aside to provide job training and placement for these people. So there will be no displacement unless you want to consider the CEOs. They got enough money of their own. They can land. They've got a nice parachute. I'm sure they've already socked away lots of money aside.
Right.
So I'm not worried about them.
Right. And we shouldn't be worried about them.
I wouldn't describe it the way you did it at the top of the hour, because that's the last thing we need to do. Because as soon as they hear that, there's a good chance they'll turn you off. Switch to another station. We can't have that. Things are too critical. I mean, this country is not approaching a crossroads anymore.
Okay, tell me what is it that you tell me what were you complaining about again, Johnny? What is it?
You said what was the word you used to describe? In other words, upsetting the apple cart kind of thing. Well, how did you phrase that again?
Disruption or?
Disruption, yeah.
Right.
No disruption, just like no collusion. No collusion.
Oh.
No disruption. Repeat that 3 times, Egberto.
Okay, no collusion, no collusion, no collusion. I've just okay,
Repeat
Johnny.
after me. No disruption.
No disruption. Okay, Johnny.
There's no disruption.
Johnny, for doing what you said.
We have legislation to take care of those folks.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's get health care overnight.
Hey, I just did my part. Now, folks, go to kpft.org. Johnny got me to say something on air. Now, go ahead and support this station because we have to be able to keep this station alive. kpft.org.
One last thing.
What's that?
One last thing.
Go for it.
Go online and enter hcfat.org, healthcareforalltexas.org. There's a bunch of great speakers there who are also associated with KPFT. You might want to give them a shout-out and see if they can send somebody over to talk with you next week or the week after about the details of that legislation.
Excellent.
So, no disruption.
No. Okay.
No disruption.
Let's
collusion,
make
yes. There is collusion in the White House.
There you go, Johnny. There you go.
All the time, every single day.
There you go.
We're not about that. We're about solving problems. Have a good day.
All right, my brother. Thank you for calling in. You have a good one, buddy. All right, let's go to line 1. Go ahead, MOD. Come on in.
Hello.
Come on in, MOD.
How y'all doing?
We're doing fine. Talk to me.
Well, first let me say, please don't use, because she's a woman, narrative as analysis. When I give you something, Roberto, at least hear me out, okay? So not to discredit a simple point. Do you know who AOC's chief of staff is?
Yes, I do, but I don't remember the name right now.
Psycat Barty?
Yes, I know. Yes, yeah.
Okay. And, he was around from Bernie's camp in 2016.
Okay.
And apparently I'm looking at Bloomberg, and I'm looking at Washington. I got screwed up, but let me just go to the story. He's moving money between his 2 PACs, which is a federal crime, to move funds and its embezzlement, legally coordinate between PACs and campaign. So that's her chief of staff. And then I went looking further into, this thing called Consortium News and Justice Democrats.
Yes, I know who Consortium News is. I know who Justice Democrats is.
So I went deep looking, and Jacques Ugar basically tapped this lady. I listened to her interview last night. I said, this was heavy. Her name's Alexandra Rojas.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were actually interviewing people for this 14th congressional district seat.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like they were going to a party or going to caucuses or They were just interviewing people. So Jack tapped her and said, "I want you to, look at this one here." And so that's where Sandy Ortez, well, her first name's Sandy, but anyway, AOC came around. She, she's very wealthy. She comes from Westchester County, which is the wealthiest city in New York.
Now, if you
anyway,
hold on. MOD, please stop for a second. Please stop. This is very important. She didn't come from wealthy. She is not a wealthy. Neither her parents were wealthy, nor is she wealthy.
Yes, her father was a lawyer, and look at right here. They're from Westchester County. The wealthiest.
Look, hold on a second, MOD. This is a fact-based station, and I've
That's
done
a fact-based station. I told you we're
Sir, I've researched who her parents are. Okay, and if
they're not from Brooklyn,
brother, that's not the point. I don't care. If
it is the point.
No, it's Everybody in Houston isn't rich or poor. Okay, just like everybody in Westchester.
Very rich. $2 million annual income.
Here's the deal.
The house average.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal.
That's the deal. I'm just telling you the truth, bro. Don't believe me.
MOD, listen to me, okay, and listen to me well. It is usually you come here with good information.
I know, but you don't like this information, do you?
This particular information I've already researched. So
I researched it. And all my information is researched.
And guess what? That you're simply wrong on that one. But we'll talk another time. I got to go to another call.
Can I just tell you about our campaign manager?
No, because again, that is another. That is look.
That's
here's where you're falling, sir.
Bloomberg.
My brother, let me get a word in
here. Here's what we're gonna do.
No, I am not going to allow my airwaves. I'm not going to allow the people's airwaves. I said my airwaves. Please forgive me. I'm not going to allow the people's airwaves to do exactly what all these folks are doing right now to the progressive side, and that is to create this sort of dissension.
I got to do it both
I am
sides.
not done, MOD. I gave you a lot of time to speak, MOD.
You're arguing with me.
MOD.
I'm not
MOD.
choosing sides. I'm just
Brother.
giving facts.
MOD.
All right.
Listen to me. Listen to me.
What?
I am not going to allow misinformation on
so there you
politics
go.
done right. Okay?
Bloomberg's line.
Okay.
Bloomberg's line.
We'll have to talk later, MOD, because
these are
we can talk offline if necessary. I gotta go.
Listeners, go look at the people I told you their names.
I gotta go.
And let them find out for themselves. Okay?
Gotta go. Thank you. Bye bye. All right, folks. The number is 713-526-5738. I'm coming to Scott, then Brad. 713-526-5738. And let me tell you what here's the deal. MOD is a good guy. And, there's a lot of research that's going on and all these people. And whenever a group of progressives come out to really get things done, we get attacks by the plutocracy who are they're very good, following the tenets of the Powell Manifesto, to put out narratives out there that are that seem plausible. And it's incumbent on people like myself who have a platform of this sort not to allow these things to metastasize. That's the responsibility I have to you. And I try to give people that free access whenever they come onto the program or any program that I do by necessity, because a lot of folks don't have a voice. But we, at the same time, cannot allow a voice that is going to falsely use the talking points of folks that does not mean us well to reign. And that's where I go from there. Okay, let me get to Scott real quick. Scott, come on in, my friend. Scott, you're on. Scott?
Where's our mini now?
Okay, this is Scott that's on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put you back on hold. Let's go to Brad. Come on in, Brad.
Hey, Scott, you snooze, you lose. We're going to have can I get MOD's address? I'll send him a bumper sticker that says, "Help the paranoid drafter me." Here's the thing. Real quickly about AOC.
Yes.
She was born into wealth, but her father died, and if you read her Wikipedia page, apparently they lost it all in probate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So she was born into wealth, but then it's like my grandfather was a radiologist, apparently a damn good one, but he died before I was even born, so I never experienced that, okay?
Right.
So that's what happened with apparently all of her money. Okay.
No, let me stop you a second, Brad, because that's what I was trying to illustrate to people, right? You can have a story can seem plausible. The phone's ringing. Can seem plausible. That simply is not true, based on how it's exposed, and it is our responsibility as responsible journalists, as responsible bloggers, not to allow those to metastasize. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay. You're wanting to say that health insurance companies are committing murder?
Yes, I do, and I stand by that. Yes, sir.
All right. Would you also agree, therefore, since it is a fact that at least half of all illnesses are caused by your diet and your lifestyle, does that mean that we got millions of people every year committing long-term suicide, and we got parents who basically give their kids a diet that is basically high fructose corn syrup? Are you going to say that the parents are murdering their children?
Okay, Brad, let me explain a few differences to that, right? And actually, you know, that is a pretty darn good analogy that you're bringing on here. And if you know,
I'm Brad, I always do it.
Yeah, and you're good. And one of the one of the things that I made sure to say, and if you notice earlier in the discussion, I spoke about the distinction between murder and also what is it called, involuntary manslaughter. And I would, when it comes to us mal-eaten, if you will, if I can call it that, if we want to use my aggressive terminology, it would be sort of a slow motion suicide or something like that. I mean, I just wrote a book called Lose Weight and Be Fit. Lose Weight and Be Fit now, right? And the reason I wrote that is that I was pretty much committing suicide myself. I got real big, my blood pressure skyrocketed, all that kind of stuff, and I found a way how to go against my will, right? So that I could get my weight right, so that I could eat better, all these different things. There's a difference though, and here it is a difference. You have eating and willpower for food and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of a pressure on you. The greed is a different thing, right? In other words, these companies are legally allowed to do that just to make a dollar. There is a distinction there. So, I mean, I am not going to argue with you as far as whether I should call it suicide, because I'm going to say, brother, you're kind of right, because that's what we're doing. We're kind of committing suicide with help of the bad genes that we have, with help of all these other things. So I'm not going to argue that point with you, because it's futile, because, your analogy was pretty darn good.
Here's the problem I have again. My girlfriend's son, he was born with being bipolar.
Hold 1 second, Brad. Folks, we have lines open, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Go ahead.
Yeah. My girlfriend's son was born with having bipolar, plus being a stupid high school kid. He jumped out of a car and he smashed his head on the pavement, and he has permanent brain injury, okay? He is under her insurance, and basically because he did self-medicating, or basically quite a few people with bipolar drink and they get out. But he's a horrible alcoholic now, and it's very sad because he's an amazing kid. He recently went to a sober house, and once the insurance ran out, they kicked him out. They said, "Oh, you're cured," but he said that they didn't even try to make him better. They actually tried just to keep him like that. So it's bad enough when the private sector's like that, but why should I, as a taxpayer, have to pay for a crooked system?
Wait, that's what how am I disagreeing with what you're saying? I'm not asking you to pay for a crooked system. I'm asking you to pay for a system that works.
But how are we going to have a system that works when already Medicare, Medicare for all should be just called Medicare on steroids, okay?
No. Medicare, and we chose a bad name because Medicare for all is not the Medicare that people know today. Medicare for all is simply everybody pays taxes, and that the coverage for Medicare for everybody's health care comes out of this huge pool. We don't have risk pools anymore. The risk pool is the pool of the great United States of America. So, I mean, what I'm saying is there's no real difference here, right?
What do you mean?
No, what I'm saying is it is factual. In other words, everybody gets taken care of, period. You're not paying for a system that doesn't work.
So let me ask this. So do you think that your health insurance, whatever you're paying every month, should be the same as me?
No. I mean, we're talking about progressive taxation here.
Okay, let's say if we both make the same amount of money.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Okay, what if you basically are eating those things called fruits and vegetables? You can actually eat them, and you do exercise at least every other day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm living on pizza, ice cream, and Moscato.
Right.
Okay. Are you still saying that you should pay the same amount as me?
Yes. And let me explain that. Let me explain why. It's simple. You see, we are these animals called human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while my faults may be not being able to resist the kinds of foods that I eat, that may be my fault, right? And you may be a very disciplined person that knows how to control that. But I can almost guarantee you that there are other failures in your life that doesn't correspond to me. In other words, if we look at the gradations of failures of people, we'll find that we all have deficiencies here and there. Do we want to enumerate the deficiency and then assign a cost to it? I say no. I say, first of all, it's not doable. But what I'm saying is, if we have a society that takes into consideration that we're all human beings, we're all fallible human beings, and that what we do is we take care of those who are better able to control themselves, as well as those who can't, because that in itself is a disease. Okay, in other words, have you seen people who just can't control the kinds of foods that they eat? I mean, look, look, we can try to blame them, we can try to embarrass them or whatever. There are forces that we don't understand here, and I'm saying we accept that as humanity, and once accepted as humanity, things goes better.
I feel it. Oh, trust me. I feel that the urges for junk food, and I slip. I don't deny that. Okay. You know, I understand that you get an addiction to food. Sugar's wonderful, but it's horrible for you. Exactly. One more thing. Because of what happened with Jesse Smollett.
Yes.
No one at KPFT ever again mention white male privilege. It is illegal to mention white male privilege. It's called wealthy privilege. Get it straight, okay?
You stop right there, Brad. Let me remind you of something. Did you hear the beginning of my show or not?
Yeah, I heard what you said, but again, nobody mentioned it again.
No.
Never mention white male privilege.
Brad, stop.
If you do, you can give me three
brother, stop, my brother.
20 years, I'll give you all my credit cards.
Brad, stop for a second, okay? One of the reasons I was so mad when I figured that what he did was a stunt, and I still don't know the fact, it seems to me still like it was a stunt, but one of the reasons that I went ahead and never spoke about it, and also is because of what you're doing right now. There is something called white privilege. And I tell you, you and I let me tell you what I did at Starbucks the other day. I was talking to a guy, and we started talking, a white guy like you, when we started talking about white privilege. And he said, like, Berto, there's nothing white privilege, all of that. We're all the same. I said, I know we're all the same. You don't have to convince me that we're all the same. You got to convince you that we're all the same. And then I said, I tell you what we're going to do. You and I are going to put on a suit. Both of us are going to put on a suit. And we're going to go to a restaurant, okay? And we're going to go as two businessmen. And let's see what kind of treatment you get versus the treatment I get. And what I try to tell him is, you see, I've run this experiment several times before. I was riding a bike with a couple other guys. I live in Kingwood. I'm usually, this time it was me and this other guy. And we go into a store, and I go in first. He comes in second. They took care of him first. He said nothing. We went to another store on the way back from the ride, and the same thing happened again. And outside, he's red as a cherry. And he said to me, Egberto, I have something to tell you, and it's just bothering me. And he said, I never understood it before. I never really understood it before, but I understand what you're saying now. And I said, we weren't even talking about it. What I'm trying to tell you, Scott, Brad is, do not make what happened with the Smollett case. You are correct that there is a class thing here, okay? That's definite. But do not discount those of us who tell you, and you know deep in your heart as well. You have to know this deep in your heart, brother, that there is we call that treatment. We call all those things. We call the redlining that occurred back in the 40s. All of those things are privileges others did not have. Understand the concept. When you can understand the concept, then we can move off of it. Understand that you got benefits that that because of those benefits that were given 40 years ago gave you a head start. Understand these things and stop trying to say, oh, I don't have any privilege that somebody else doesn't have. I can take a person who doesn't have an education, put a suit on them, and put a suit on me who has an extensive education and go out there, and I would have to prove myself double. I live with that burden, okay? I live with that burden. I don't complain about that burden, but I live it. So please.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I've had a black business partner who told me some little altercation he had with the police.
Exactly.
Okay?
So
I have a black girlfriend who tells me that.
Well, speak to your black girlfriend, sir. She knows if she's
she's gotten a look. She told me that the guy's giving me the look. I'm not disagreeing, but what I'm trying to say is, if you and I are going to a place and I'm driving my little hoopty wearing jeans and a T-shirt, you're going in there driving your Mercedes and wearing your $1,200
suit.
Italian suit, who do you think is going to get preferential treatment?
Let me stop you a second there, because I even have that as a concept. When I dress like a bomb every day when I go to Starbucks. Okay, I must admit that. But I showed one time, we had a discussion with my wife one time about how I dress and how people are going to look at me. They're not going to know that you know all this stuff or all that kind of. I really don't care. And then we went into a store one time, and this guy looked like hell. And he got better service than I did, dressed pretty well. And I looked at my wife then and I said, you see what I'm telling you about? It has very little to do with how you look. It's about how you look and who you are. But anyway, I got to go, Brad. I got to go. Thank you so kindly for calling, brother. You keep listening. You keep calling. And remember, go to kpft.org and support this station. Bye-bye, folks. All right, let's go to line one. Come on in, William.
Hello, Egberto.
Talk to me.
Egberto. Were you at that Sunday thing?
Say that again?
The birthday party?
Yes. I wasn't able to go to the birthday party. What's up?
Well, I was there for the street party, but I had gotten a ride, plus I had ailments, so I had to go. I couldn't go to the birthday party, but I did want to run into you and some other people. But anyway, the reason I called was about William Barr.
Yes, talk to me about William.
Well, I mean, you know what I've talked about on the Iran-Contra thing.
Yes.
And, this guy has no business being the Attorney General. And nobody's holding his feet to the fire. None.
Well, I agree with you. He has no right to be the Attorney General because he's a
been recluse.
Yeah, he's a crook who he forced Bush to pardon quite a few people. You're correct on that.
Yeah, it's insane. You asked me a question the last time I called. Where do I get my information?
Yes.
The reason I moved to from California to here was because the guy that I knew was the most powerful person I knew personally. I knew him for 15 years, and he was a full-time operative with the CIA for the 15 years prior to me knowing him, and he was a part-time operative with the CIA. Anyway, he owned an after-hours club in Southern California where you could play pool. He didn't even have a license because he was a member of the Lions Club and all that sort of stuff. And he just looked at me after 2 weeks and he said, Bill, I don't think anybody can help you.
Hey, well, Bill, I got to go to another call, and I thank you so much.
You don't give me any time, and you ain't got the guts to interview me, so, that's crazy. You let all these people drone on, and they ain't got nothing to say.
Look, William, I love you, William, but I got to go because of the time.
You don't have the guts to interview me. Later.
All right, brother. All right, let's go to John. Come on in, John.
Hello, Egberto. This is John. How are you doing?
All right, talk to me, my brother.
Yes, about your topic today. I'm an immigrant here, and I have been able to see other countries. And I just first point at that healthcare in the USA and education, like university college, is the worst solved problem in the country. So this is something that you guys absolutely need to solve. The Medicare for all and single payer is, of course, the proposal you are pushing from is kind of drastic. I hope you guys maybe succeed with that. But, for example, in Spain, where I lived for a few years, it's a combined offer.
Right.
So you have the opportunity to go to the government hospitals or services, or to go to private services. And it's actually very inexpensive, the private service, in the sense that you buy an insurance. It's not expensive, and you get a very good service in the private sector with no co-payment or no extra money, no anything out of pocket, but your insurance card. So it is like keeping the privates competing with the government. And that's something that works at least in Spain.
Now,
it's not as drastic as the single payer, but it's a possible solution too.
And I don't, look, let me tell you, if somehow we work out there, I would have to accept it. But I'm just talking as an engineer from a scientific point of view, from a mathematical point of view. A government shouldn't have to compete with private sector for doing something that is within the social welfare. Most of the times you have a private sector to make a few investors money. Okay. In other words, once you tell me insurance, private sector, I'm saying the only purpose of an insurance company in the private sector is to make money for a group of people. Okay. And I mean, and it's almost an absolute statement, right? And the fact of the matter is, if you have to take out money to pay investors, if you have to take out money, that is money that otherwise has to be denied in service to the people who are doing your stuff. Now, in the case of Spain has very, very tight regulations on their insurance companies, as do France and other countries that allow the private sector in there. So they do have very tight controls, and they say, okay, these are the tight controls. You have to meet these. And what you find in... yeah, go ahead.
And they still compete. So the privates there, they find a way to do the service and still makes decent money.
Right.
So it is that these regulations set a bar that is higher in performance for the private sector, and the government sets the prices in the sense that you always have a benchmark with the government. So if the private sector goes too expensive, then the public has the opportunity to go and get the government service.
Right.
And if the private wants to get some clients, they need to go down on prices, because as the private needs to give profits to the owners of the investors, also the public sector has inefficiencies.
Right.
Has corruption or
right.
a bureaucracy that's maybe the same share. If you, in the mathematical point of view, that's the inefficient on the public side, and the profit is the inefficiency on the private side.
Right. I think we can admit, though, that we can. I always sneer whenever we use corruption in the public sector, as if there isn't corruption in the private sector as well. And the same people that run in the public sector run in the private sector, right? So I think a lot of this is ideological, John. But again, like I said, look, I want Medicare for all, because mathematically speaking, it's more efficient. Now, if for some reason we can only get to at least where you're talking about, my first and foremost goal is to ensure that the citizens are taken care of. So if that is something that we have to get to after a long fight, of course, I'm not going to say, it's one way or the other. But what I'm going to try my best to do right now is promote the mathematics behind
the optimum on that, and at least moving in that direction, whatever the ending result will be, but it will be better.
Thank you so kindly for calling, John, and bringing a measure.
I'm the same one, the Venezuelan.
Hey, mi amigo, ¿cómo estás?
Bien.
Vamos a ver si salimos más tarde, ¿está bien?
Okay, perfecto.
Ciao. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, let's go to Anissa. Come on in, Anissa.
Hey, I was going to say, you would have to use the Amiga, but great to talk to you, buddy.
All right, amiga. How you doing?
I was thinking, in a way your wife had a better point, and I would agree with her. I think a little bit of that was personal recognition, because a lot of people, if you put them together with crumpled clothing, they would frown on people both, because we have a conception, especially if we see someone who we think is homeless.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's really doubled when if the person has body odor. I mean, the body odor is going to be the extreme factor.
Right.
They don't. People wouldn't want to be within 4 city blocks of them.
I hear you, Anissa. Anissa, I only have like 30 seconds left for you before I jump to Scott. So you want to tell me something real quickly?
Well, yeah. I mean, healthcare for all is great, and if we institute it in homeless shelters and with the shelter programs, I think. It would be a great thing. My shelter experience was not great. It seemed like the shelter system was built more for Judeo-Christian white people, which unfortunately I had. I have Muslim dietary needs. I don't eat pork, and that just
gotta go, Anissa. Thank you so kindly for calling in. You keep calling. I got one more caller I got to get to, and then I got to be out of here, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so kindly. Bye-bye. Okay, come on in, Scott. Scott, I've been trying to get to you, and you've been on hold for quite a while. I just gave your time to Anissa. Are you still here, Scott?
Oh. How about Bill?
Okay, go ahead. Whoever is on the line that's listening to me, go ahead, talk.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Speak, sir.
Oh, this is Bill. I've been on the line for a long time, too.
Well, hey, Bill, I came to you twice. Go ahead.
Pardon me? No, this is the first time I talked to you.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Well, somehow you got off Medicare for all.
Yes.
And you got into these bull roar people coming in, and
Okay, make your point, sir. I only got 30 seconds, my friend.
Well, it's not enough. It's the most difficult subject you'll ever talk about. My point is, right now, Bernie is calling for Medicare for all.
Yes.
And right now, they are privatizing Medicare.
Yes.
It's called Medicare Advantage.
I spoke about that. You're right.
I know you spoke about it, but it really needs to be talked about. Okay? The number of enrollees went from 11% to 32%.
Yes.
And they did because they're paying a commission of $500 per enrollee.
20% more is what it's costing. Yes, sir. We talked about that on this show before, but we will again, sir. I got to go. Thank you so kindly for calling in, and I'm sorry we had a mess-up with the calls, okay? Thank you.
Right.
Okay, folks, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out!
Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com. Remember, Egberto is spelled E-G-B-E-R-T-O. Change starts with you. 90.1 KPFT gives you information not tainted by corporate interest. Please visit kpft.org and contribute. Let's ensure continued access to real information and news remain available to all. Again, thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right.